What seems harmless but is incredibly dangerous. Walking along the train tracks, it's crazy how fast millions of pounds of freight can sneak up on you. Nurse, I had a teenage girl come from home economics class. She was sewing and had a pin between her lips. I mean, who hasn't done that? She sucked it in and it got lodged in her throat. While waiting for a scope, she felt it dislodge and went deep into her main bronchial. She required major surgery. Had a young boy running with a toothbrush in his mouth. Got jammed way deep. Almost hit a major artery. A human bite. I worked at a kindergarten and one kid was sometimes super sweet, but sometimes really mean. He could switch in a second. While I was naming the coloring pages they were about to get, he walked up to me and bit me in the arm. Didn't think it was true, 'cause no blood. But it started swelling and getting red and the marks were clearly there. Went to the doc right after my shift. He explained a human bite is the second most dangerous bite there is. Got antibiotics, but they didn't work. Arm just kept swelling and getting completely dark purple over 2 days. Doctor sent me to the hospital where I got strong antibiotics. Basically everything in me was cleaned with that shit. Felt weak for months. If it didn't start working by that night, is have to come back and be hospitalized to get my underarm removed. I'd shat some bricks there. Never thought a kid's bite could cause this. Luckily the swelling got less and the bruise stopped spreading, so I still have my arm, but that was very close. EDIT for the people who asked me if I punished the kid. His parents did that for me. My coworker reported the incident to the parents and it was one of his last days there as they were moving. This was planned before he bit me. His parents were really sorry and a few days later, when I worked again, it was the last time I'd see him and the parents brought him towards me because they wanted him to apologize. My arm was still fairly swollen and purple at that point, and he was absolutely shocked that he had been the cause of that. He apologized with tears in his eyes and actually hugged me. He promised me never to bite anyone again. Apparently, he had bitten his family and even other children before. So far no one had gotten an infection apart from me, and I really think he meant that. Him. But was still pretty mad as I was scared my antibiotics stopped working or something. But now that I think back on him, he's not a bad kid, just a troubled mind that didn't get the right treatment. But a scare not the less. Having a small snack before a medical procedure that requires anesthesia. Intubation can cause you to throw up your food and you can choke. Pool covers, it's like being wrapped in a bedsheet underwater. You cannot get free and you cannot scream for help. Once you're in, the only way to get out is to be incredibly lucky and get free, or have faith that someone saw or heard you falling and hope that they get you in time. It's a lengthy, terrifying death that's completely avoidable. Oceanside cliff blowholes. People think they're so much fun to stand around and play with. You fall into one of those things, you aren't getting out. The waves will just bludgeon you against the rocks until you die, or you're lucky enough to drown first. Kids picking flowers in the park. Of the deadliest plants if ingesting even a tiny amount, or wild parsnip, which can cause some serious permanent scarring, burns, and boils if the sap gets onto your skin and is exposed to sunlight. Don't let your kids take or eat anything you aren't 100% sure of. Confined spaces, above ground or worse, below the surface. If you do urban exploration, caving, or anything like that, get a for gas detector, clip it to your chest or belt, and set the alarm to max. If it makes a sound, get the fuck out or you are going to die. Eating raw or undercooked kidney beans can make you very sick or even kill you. It only takes like 3 undercooked kidney beans to ruin your day. Walking off the boardwalks at Yellowstone. They have several signs pressing that even though the ground may look normal in those areas, it could be really thin. I've seen people do it anyway. Looks safe does not equal safe. Weirdly specific, but leaking hydraulic fluid from a small crack in a pressurized manifold. It doesn't shoot out like a gas would. Instead looks like droplets, but if you put your thumb over it, it shoots toxic hydraulic fluid into your bloodstream. Not changing the tires on your back me up on. Can't just drive around with the same tires on forever. Eventually you'll end up doing donuts in the middle of a wet interstate because your back tires lost traction. Cat scratch fever. Yeah, the song is pretty cool, but that's about it. A stray cat scratched my dad one time and fucked his shit up. Garage door springs. People don't realize just how much tension those things are actually under. Never repair a garage door yourself unless you know exactly what you're doing. The stored energy in them is enough to break bones and sever limbs. Over-the-counter medicines. Just because you can get something without a prescription does not mean it's safe in all cases or in high doses. Pushing someone's face into a cake, as a cakes have little wooden spikes inside to support the post where a girl's face was gored by one of these. Small cuts you get when doing marine stuff. If you are diving snorkeling at a coral reef and lightly scrape yourself on some coral, for the love of God disinfect the living shit out of that, no matter how mild it looks. The bacteria on coral will literally eat your leg off. Cuts on your hand while handling stuff like diatomaceous earth or sea sponges can cause tiny glass spines to enter your bloodstream and poke tiny holes in all those blood highways running through you. While this is a bit of a he said, she said story, my professor apparently had a student hospitalized and died due to massive internal bleeding issues from handling this shit day after day. Putting your feet up on the dash while riding as a passenger in a moving car. You do not want to see post-accident photos of what happens when someone is in that posture in a surprise head-on collision. Cat bites. Cat fangs puncture deep and trap bacteria deep within your tissue, leading to horrible infections. It's not bleeding much, but that just means the wound isn't flushing properly. If you get seriously bitten by a cat, it's very important to go to urgent care so they can properly disinfect the wound. The cinnamon challenge that was all the rage a few years back. When aspirated, it can cause severe burns on nasal passages and nasal, not mask, but it kind of worked anyway. NS were specifically made to be round, otherwise I would have lived with one kidney from then on, since it rammed into my kidney, but not hard enough to damage, thankfully. Still hurt like hell after though. Texting while driving. You might think this is obvious, but I see many people texting and driving every day. Not cool and definitely not safe. Water in general, but fast-moving water specifically. 2 or 3 inches of water is all that's needed to sweep you off of your feet. If it's moving fast, 0.12 inches of water will lift and sweep away a car. Water is heavy and will fuck you up if you don't respect it. An engineer, I have seen and understand that they can kill you. I know that when the toe or last half of a spillway is filled and there is a pool at the bottom, a whirlpool can be created. Not the whirlpool you're thinking of at the public pool that spins you around. It's similar but turned on its side. The whirlpool it created will prevent you from swimming away from the spillway or even create waves pushing you down. The water goes down the spillway and then rushes back up where the incoming water pushes it back down again. The force can be so great that you cannot get out. Kids see these spillways as water slides with pools on the bottom. If they're large spillways, canoers see them as a small waterfall. These hidden whirlpool can kill you. People go down the spillways and get trapped and will drown. They can become extremely dangerous. Those black foodstuffs with charcoal in them. Charcoal interacts with a bunch of medications, gets in the way of nutrient absorption, and can really upset your digestive tract. For kids, someone online with a sympathetic ear for their problems. Responsible adults will try to put you in touch with real-life help, not encourage a pattern of reliance and inappropriate intimacy. Bonus danger points on anyone who throws down you're really mature for your age. Predators online work just like real-life hunting predators. Their first goal is to separate you from your herd. An unloaded gun, or even worse, an unloaded, is a reason as to why gun instructors always tell you to treat every firearm as if it was loaded. Silicon chips, very safe in the finished product form, but dear God, the chemicals involved are component in production is pure hydrogen, and it is the safest one. Another is trichlorosilane. Its auto-ignite temp is 40 Fahrenheit. It's combustible on contact with moisture, which includes humidity. When it mixes with water and doesn't manage to explode, its temperature skyrockets, and the byproduct is hydrochloric acid. I learned this while working in a polysilicon factory, and they dumped it on my crew from an empty vessel, letting water from a fresh water source up your nose. Most of the time it will be fine, but every once in a while you'll get a brain-eating amoeba that has a 99.9% fatality rate. This is in the US as well. Just closing your eyes for a few more minutes after cutting your alarm off. I have to either get up or hit the snooze button, or I'm going to be out for hours lol. Changing lanes without leaving a proper gap, or checking your blind spot and signaling your intention. X2OB. On the surface it seems fine because, hey, you're going faster than the person you're passing, right? Nope. All it takes is something like a deer to completely fuck your world sideways. When passing anyone, always wait to get into the lane they were in until you see their headlights fully in your rearview mirror and have cleared your blind spot. It's even more dangerous to do this to a semi. Your car will be eaten if it hits you. X2OB. Always Always visually check your blind spot. Always. Blind spot sensors are not an adequate substitute for a visual check. You're asking for trouble if you don't make sure someone hasn't popped in there. X2OB. Use your dang turn signal. Other drivers are not mind readers. Signal your intent and follow through with it. Following too closely in your car, not just tailgating, but even following 50 feet behind in fast traffic. Next time you're in your car, wait for the car in front of you to pass a clear marker like an exit sign or a bridge, then count the seconds until you reach this marker. This is the amount of time you have to react and potentially save your own life in an emergency. I always shoot for 3 seconds, which is about 20 car lengths in 70 miles per hour traffic. For people who follow a 3 car lengths rule, you have about 0.4 seconds to react in the same situation, and I'm not that quick under pressure. Grapefruit juice. But a lot of people aren't aware that grapefruit juice specifically has interactions with a lot of different drugs, both medical and recreational, and can be potentially very dangerous when combined. I know everyone hates edits, but this got way more attention than anticipated, and I didn't cite any sources in my original post. So, don't take my word for it, I'm just some random internet guy. Here's a page from the FDA on interactions between grapefruit and several medications. Edit by request. I'm seeing a lot of replies saying that CBD may have similar interactions to grapefruit juice. To be absolutely clear here, I have no idea whether this is accurate or not. This is the first I've heard of it. I've done zero research, and I'm definitely not qualified to speculate on the subject. That said, however, enough people have brought it up that it seems at least worth mentioning. If you are a CBD user and concerned about possible interactions with medications or other substances, please consult a qualified medical professional for advice. Here are a couple of links on the subject of CBD drug interactions courtesy of user Energy Taker Lad. Harvard Health. CBD and other medications, proceed with caution. Forbes. What grapefruit and CBD have in common when it comes to drug interactions. Cute little palm-sized octopi with cute little blue rings on. Many people are saying octopi is incorrect. It's registered in the Cambridge Dictionary as a plural form, but then again, so is the word ain't. Churs of bears. Apparently, it looks harmless to people in Yellowstone. Bears are faster than many expect, especially uphill, so if you are ever near a bear and want a picture, stay in your car to do it. Edit. Holy shit, was not expecting 400 upvotes. And to elaborate, I saw this a lot when they're with my dad, and he was told to piss off when he told people bears are faster uphill. Pretty sure some people we drove past got killed, can't remember. And all this with his wife that was in shock and watching. My mom was helping to make sure that she didn't have problems. My mom is a nurse and she couldn't do anything else or her license is at risk. I nearly punched that paramedic. Fuck, that was a long edit. Fuck you, read it. I read a study recently on a rare disorder called Deagle syndrome. A little bone at the base of your skull gets too long. At 30 cases in the US last year where someone was talking on their phone, dancing, just looking up and pointing at something, and that little bone was long enough to sever their internal carotid artery. Weird to think someone's body just tried to end it all for looking up. Being conflict avoidant, advantage of, and on a higher level, terrible people get into and keep positions of power and oppression when people opt to stay silent rather than challenge the status quo for the sake of pseudo-unity. Amateur mental health advice. Everyone is an armchair psychologist these days, and that creates problems. Diagnosing and treating mental illness is actually incredibly complex. There's a reason we make people study for so many years before we call them. A friend comes to you complaining about a serious mental health condition like depression, suicide, anxiety, etc. Your first advice should always be see an expert. It's way easier than you think to give negligent advice that can make the problem worse. Instead, be a listener. Chances are nothing you say can fix your friend's mental health issue. It's far more helpful to be a sympathetic ear and to give potentially negligent advice. Answering a seemingly innocent "just wanted to see how you are doing" text from someone who is bad for your mental health. Stonefish. Camouflage fish. Very painful venom. Cone snail. Orange white cone shaped shell that often looks attractive and enticing until you pick it up. Edit. Wow, this blew up in only a couple of hours. TX for all the likes. I've found your stories so interesting. You can learn about other deadly creatures like these on Nature's Deadliest National Geographic. Another edit. What DHX for the award. Jumping across the Bolton Strait, a waterway that appears as a stream, but is actually a sort of sideways river with an extremely strong current. Paracetamol and ORS are really common, easy to get hold of and cheap painkiller that can be deadly as feck. I work in the healthcare business and I've seen people who have tried to kill themselves with paracetamol. They generally take 3,050,500 milligrams tablets. This is usually a potentially fatal dose dependent on body weight as it can lead to liver failure. Have taken 3-6 times that dosage as they can't cope with the pain, but don't think they have done anything wrong since it's kept the pain at bay, not whilst realizing they are blitzkrieging their liver. Most recently was a 23-year-old who'd had toothache in his wisdom tooth for a couple of weeks and had developed an abscess. He was taking to buy 500 milligrams paracetamol and to buy 200 milligrams ibuprofen every 15 minutes. The pain was so bad that it was the only way he could dull the pain. When told they have to go to ed right away, the response is usually why. It's only paracetamol and ibuprofen. They wouldn't sell them if they were bad for you. Turbulence. If proper precautions are being taken, it's not dangerous, but under certain circumstances, it can be. 1. Keep your seatbelt on at all times when you're sitting, even if the light isn't on. The flight crew doesn't just recommend this to ruin your day. CAT clear air turbulence can happen at any time, without warning, and people have been seriously injured by being thrown from their seats and hitting the overhead bins, seats, other passengers, etc. 2. Lap infants. Big no-no. I'm not sure why the FAA even allows this. Infants are safest in a car seat for air travel. The minute the plane hits a bump, moms, or whoever is holding the baby arms are going to loosen, and a child whose skull hasn't fully fused together is going to go airborne. Of baby wearing, any impact the wearer incurs is also going to affect the child, and given how little room there is between rows of airplane seats, there's a much greater chance of injury to the baby. The two purchase a separate seat for a small child. And while I wholeheartedly agree that the airline industry is rife with money-grubbing bloodsuckers, this is one expense you can't afford to skimp on. Source: I personally know several airline pilots and crew members who have seen this shit firsthand. Teens using those card things to basically reveal everything about themselves. You see these teens inform you about all of their issues, mental illnesses, etc. It puts them in danger of being stalked, bullied with plenty of ammo, etc. Feeding wildlife. Even if it seems safe for yourself to do so, it's probably very dangerous for the animal you feed. It's very likely that feeding a wild animal may lead to its death. Hippos look like goofy, cute, friendly animals, but they are among the most dangerous animals that you could ever encounter. They are the one animal that even Steve Irwin was afraid of and wouldn't go near. Driving. Jump into a heavy metal, plastic and glass box on wheels. Point that box in the same direction as other boxes and accelerate. Hope that all the other human-controlled boxes are operated by competent human who is paying attention to the road, the conditions, and all the other boxes moving around this every day. It astounds me that there's so few deaths per day involving vehicles. Koalas, just like every other animal in Australia, they will kill you if they get the chance. Koalas eat only two things: eucalyptus and human flesh. Jumping into bodies of water. In most northern countries, jumping into the ocean or a lake can be deadly. As soon as your body hits that freezing water, your muscles can seize, and those with heart conditions can even have a heart attack. It only takes water 15 degrees Celsius, and the UK's waters average 10-15 degrees Celsius. Here on Vancouver Island, our water drops to maximum lows of 6 degrees Celsius, and we're considered a warm tourist destination in Canada.